early, aren't you?
The way I could depart from the bus stop was really vicious.
Got the grip of it now. I've got the measure of it now. You tell me you're going to be some G coming.
I don't know if there is actually with this traffic.
No. Well, what we have to do is to save this for the Integrale.
For what? What's that?
Well, it's exciting filming.
Oh yes.
We had to do it out in the country.
Yeah.
And the idea would have been, along the old coach road.
Hang on. The hell, where's he going?
Oh, the old great, where are you going?
Let's go, yeah. Where the bumps are, isn't it?
The bumps?
The bumps going into Bristol.
Yes.
Terrible in these cars.
Oh dear.
You might shake your camera around.
Don't notice it in the waterbed, of course.
I know, you don't.
I accelerate when I get to them.
So where are you thinking of for quiet shots?
Well, if we're just going to do a little bit of walking around and talking about it,
yeah.
At
home.
home.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's go home.
In my yard.
That's right.
In the mews. Be amusing.
Why is your monitor gone green, Alan?
It's envy. This is Graham's Porsche on its last day in Bristol. So how do you feel about parting with your Porsche?
Distraught, deeply distraught. Parting with your Porsche is the hardest thing you can do, especially when you spent 4 months mending the engine on it.
Do you want to show us what you've done or where you've done it?
Well, when I bought it from an Olympic yachtsman, would you believe, in Southampton, it was so corroded, the car, that the head studs had broken on the engine. And so I decided to take the engine out when I got it home and change all the head studs, which in fact took, well, nearly 4 months. But the drive home was fun, as the thing sounded like a Gatling gun, a four-wheel Gatling gun. Anyway, I'll open the bonnet, or the boot, as it is in these cars, and have a look. Right, now this large lump here is the heat exchanger for the turbo. So what happens is there's a big turbo at the back of the engine, and it forces compressed air up here, and it's cooled in here, and then forced into the engine down there. And what the engine is a 6-cylinder, flat, air-cooled engine, like a monster motorbike. It's 3.3 litres, like a huge air-cooled motorbike engine, with this great big turbo sitting under here, off a lorry probably. And I've tweaked the turbo so that it makes the engine a bit more powerful. It's probably about 330 brake horsepower now. When you consider a Mini has only 34 brake horsepower, you can see this thing's nearly 10 times the power of a Mini. If you look down here, there's, in addition to its normal exhaust pipes, you've got this little silencer and exhaust pipe, which looks like something borrowed from a moped. And this, from Porsche, costs about £600, and it's only the outlet from the turbo wastegate. Most cars just have a bit of bent pipe. In addition to this, it has its own sump, so the oil comes out of the turbo into its own little sump, and that's pumped out of it by a special oil pump which goes into the engine's own dry sump tank. So the whole outfit must cost Porsche another £2,000 on top of the normal engine. You'll notice these strange holes in the disc. These perforations are in addition to the normal ventilated slots in the disc brake. And when the first Porsche turbos came out, they didn't stop very well, and so they limited the power on them, and the brakes just overheated terribly. And so they looked at their racing Porsches, the 917, which was at Le Mans, and they used exactly the same brakes as on the 917 on this later 3.3 turbo, and it's almost the best thing about the car. They're very, very powerful brakes. The most famous thing about the Porsche Turbo, I suppose, is this, the whale tail, or as I call it, the picnic table, because it's very handy if you're out somewhere. You can balance bottles of milk and the odd cup of tea on it, and it's quite handy. But in fact does a lot, because I've driven Porsches without any sort of wing on the back, and they feel very, very light at high speed. And the good thing about this whale tail is that it really helps the back sit down when you're doing over 150. So
Right.
We'll just have a look inside. Now in most cars the biggest instrument is the speedometer, but the speedometer in this car is this one here, and the rev counter's the biggest one in one of these, because as you're driving along you really have to try and keep the revs around about above 3.5, and before the red mark.
What's that gauge at the bottom of the rev counter there?
That's the boost pressure, and
Oh,
again
yeah.
you want to try and keep that up. That's measuring the amount of pressure that the turbo is actually giving you in bar, and it goes up to 0.8 of a bar, which isn't that much, but seems to be enough.
And to start it up then.
Yep.